So where should you use your Aventurine? In this video, I'm going to be going through Aventurine's teams. I'm just going to be showing you some of his synergies and teams where he works 100% at his potential, where you can use him fully, as a sustain of course. But hey, before we do that though, to get some of Aventurine's best teammates, you're going to need a lot of shards. The best way to get cheaper shards is going to be throughout Loot Bar GG. Loot Bar is going to be a safe and secure top-up website that's going to allow you to get cheaper shards for your Honkai Star Rail account. They use the same top-up routes as Mihoyo, so it's 100% safe and secure. Let me show you guys how to use Loot Bar. So you're just going to click the link in the comments and go to Honkai Star Rail, and then you're going to choose which offer you want. For example, I'm going to buy the 3,280 shards. If I buy that from the in-game store, it's going to cost me around $50, but on Loot Bar, it's going to cost $42 only. If you also use the 5% coupon for newcomers, you're going to save up even more money. So after all of that, it's going to be around 20% off. That means I saved around $10 for this purchase. Then you're just going to put in your user ID and the server region. Your user ID is just a number down left from your screen, and then the region is going to show before you open your game. Make sure to double check those because that's going to be very important to get your shards. And then when you finish, you can just click on top up now. You enter your payment method and information, and then you're done. You're just going to wait a little bit for the payment to process. For me, it took around like 10 minutes. And then when you open up the game the next time, you're going to get the shards. Also, if it's your first time buy-in, especially after the 2.1 reset, you're still going to gain the normal double offers and stuff like that, like your buy-in from in-game. Click the link in the comments to recharge now. Alright, so back to Aventurine's teams. His first team type and the most obvious one is going to be the follow-up attack teams. We all know that Aventurine launches a follow-up attack when he reaches enough stacks. And with his Ascension 6 Trace, every time an ally launches a follow-up attack, it's going to give you a stack, up to 3 stacks. And that's going to help you a lot to gain enough stacks for your follow-up attack. It's also going to give you a free shield. So it's just going to make him much more skill point positive. You definitely want to take advantage of that, and you do that with just using him in follow-up attack teams, or there's at least one character who's going to be doing follow-up attacks in his team. So yeah, he has very good synergy with follow-up attackers. He's going to be the good sustain in follow-up attack teams. He's going to be sustaining them with his shield and then also providing his own damage. So team examples, we can do the obvious, just the Dr. Ratio Topaz team. You can have like Dr. Ratio, Topaz, and then let's say Ting Yun, Ron Mei. Even Yukong is actually going to be pretty good with him generally in this team, especially because you're going to have Dr. Ratio and then Aventurine as imaginary characters. So Yukong is going to be pretty good. But yeah, pretty much you can use any Harmony and then Aventurine as a sustain. Dr. Ratio is going to be the main DPS here. Topaz is going to be the second DPS and also the buffer. And then you also have your buffer, and then Aventurine is going to be the sustain. It's going to be protecting your allies by a shield. Dr. Ratio is going to be helping him get the stacks with his follow-up attack. And then Aventurine is also going to be doing his own follow-up attack. Then also Aventurine is going to be helping Ratio get some debuffs. We're going to talk about that more in the next portion of the video. Also, it's going to be very skill point positive in this type of teams, because you're going to be gaining a free shield faster, so you're not going to need to use your skill as often. Another follow-up attack example is going to be like Jing Yuan, for example. So almost the same thing. You can use like Jing Yuan, Topaz, then say Ting Yun, for example, which is going to be kind of necessary with Jing Yuan, and then let's say Aventurine. Pretty much the same thing. Jing Yuan is going to be the main DPS doing his follow-up attacks. He's going to be helping Aventurine build stacks, and then Aventurine is going to be the sustain and also dealing his own damage, which is super good. But yeah, that's in general pretty much any Topaz team or any follow-up attack team in general. Aventurine is going to be pretty good in. Just any team that contains at least one follow-up attackers, that's going to synergize pretty well with Aventurine. Unless obviously this follow-up attacker specifically is not going to like Aventurine. For example, Blade, you'd want to take damage on Blade, so Aventurine is not going to like synergize with him pretty well. Other than that, if the follow-up attacker doesn't have like a specific problem with Aventurine himself, then in that case, he's generally just going to work. So you can throw him as a sustain for any follow-up attack team, and that's going to be pretty good. Now, the next type of Aventurine teams is going to be any team that needs a debuff, because with Aventurine's Elemental Burst is going to apply a debuff on a single enemy. So any team that needs a debuff, Aventurine is going to work pretty well in. We've been seeing quite a bit of characters who like synergize pretty well with debuffs, so that's going to be very good. The obvious example is that, as I said before, a Dr. Ratio team again. Dr. Ratio is going to appreciate debuffs a lot, so if you're using Aventurine as a sustain, that's going to be very good. Maybe you're not going to need to use like another Nihility or something like that. So it's going to make him kind of more flexible. So again, same Dr. Ratio team, like Dr. Ratio, Topaz, and Harmony, and then Aventurine. The next debuff team is going to be an Acheron team, obviously. She's going to appreciate debuffs because they're going to help her build stacks for her elemental bursts. And usually you're gonna need 2 inhalities with her and stuff like that. But having a sustain able to give you a debuff is gonna be pretty cool too. It's gonna help you get your ult faster, which is always appreciated. Especially if you have her like C2, you can just use a harmony straight up who doesn't give you debuffs. And then your sustain Aventurine is gonna be giving you more debuffs to get your ult faster. So that's pretty good. Obviously a team example is gonna be like Acheron, then let's say Pela, and then Silverwolf or Gneifen or whatever, and then Aventurine has a sustain. Now in these type of teams, especially Aventurine is not gonna work 100%, depending on the team obviously, because with Acheron, for example, this team there's not enough like follow-up attackers, so his damage on his own is gonna be lacking, but as a sustain that can help you get debuffs, he's still gonna be very valuable, and the speed you get for Acheron is gonna be worth it for the damage loss for Aventurine. So the team in general is gonna perform very well with Aventurine. It's a trade-off, yes, obviously, because your damage is gonna be less as Aventurine, but the stacks you help Acheron build and the big shields you give the team so you make sure they don't die, in general that's gonna make the team very good. So it's definitely a good spot to use Aventurine in, because for example you can use like Gallagher, but his sustain is gonna be lacking. So Aventurine is definitely gonna be a very good upgrade for this team. Now these are mainly the teams where you'd want to use Aventurine in, but the thing is, don't forget he's just like a 5-star sustain, so he's generally going to be able to sustain any team pretty much, regardless of whether he synergizes with them, he doesn't, stuff like that. You can just slap him at any team, he's going to be giving you big shields, you can sustain the team, and that's it. As I said before, he's also generally going to be like skill point positive, not too much, but positive enough, especially in like non-follow-up attack teams. His skill point regeneration is not going to be too good, but he's definitely going to be positive, so that's also a good thing. It's gonna make him much more flexible as a sustain. That means you can also use him in any random team as just a sustain. Before we continue with that though, please make sure to subscribe to the channel. That's gonna help me a lot, and we're trying to reach 7K, so hit that subscribe button. Did you do it? Oh, you already did? Thank you so much. Let's get back to the video. For example, you can use them with like Dan Heng. So you can have Dan Heng, let's say you're on main, then Sparkle, and then Aventurine. Now you're not really going to take any advantage out of like Aventurine's debuffs here, or Aventurine is not going to be like taking follow-up attacks and stuff like that, so his damage is going to be lacking, but he's going to be able to sustain your team. So if you just need him as a sustain, he's also going to be there at any type of team. Again, any DPS. As long as they don't have like any obvious conflicts with him. As I said before, Blade, for example, is not going to work, but other than that, any like normal DPS, he's gonna work as a normal sustain. Again, just to throw in a few more examples, like an Argenti team, you can have like Argenti, then Ting Yun, for example, and then Sparkle, and then Aventurine. That's a very good team too. But yeah, other than that, I think that's pretty much it for his teams. Let me know your team compositions and what you're going to be using in the comments. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel. See you guys in the next video. Peace.